your home is like my home, you can always use a little extra storage space. And so today on Woodworking with Wes, we're going to build a very unique little storage cabinet that'll go anywhere in anybody's home. It's inspired by a shaker cabinet that I used to build a lot of years and years ago. Let me show you. Our cabinet will be a total of 52 inches high. The cabinet itself is 51 1/4 with a 3/4 inch top. I've drawn out the sides so I know exactly what my measurements, my cuts will be. My shelves will be dadoed in, and I've marked the spacing between my shelves. And I've also marked a little notation here of how deep I want to make my dado. We're going to get started by cutting the sides, doing the dados, and then cutting the shelves. Here we go. We've completed our cutting and dadoing of our side pieces. I want to go over and just show you what we've done. We've dadoed for our 4 shelves. We put a rabbet cut in the back. That will be to accept our 1/4 inch back after we get in the assembly stage. Now, I'm going to show you one thing. It's kind of a little trick. This is 3/4 inch pine that we purchased from Home Depot. Not a bad price. We paid for our wood and we brought it home. We haven't done anything with it right now, but just started working on it. But as is typical with pine from a lot of places, it has a cup. This piece of wood has cupped a little bit. I worked very hard trying to get nice straight stock, but just in the course of moving from Home Depot to my cabinet shop here, started to cup a little bit. There's a way to solve that. It's a little trick. Being as this is a cabinet that's going to be, these dados are going to be in the inside, I set up my table saw again, and we're going to make 2 kerf cuts about 2 or 3 inches apart down the center of this board, the full length, and that will take the stress out of the cup. And so we'll be able to bend that back and forth ever so slightly as we put in our shelves and nail those in, and it'll straighten up our sides. It's a tricky little deal that I learned way back when I was building these in New England. I had a wood that was often not perfectly flat. This is how I solved it. Let's watch. There's our little kerf cuts, and it'll flatten our board right out. It's amazing how that works. When we get ready to nail in our shelves, we're not going to have a problem with the cup that is involved in this piece of wood. It's going to flatten right out. Now that we've made our 2 little kerf cuts, you can see how there's a gap in the middle here because our board has a cup to it. But because we did those 2 little kerf cuts, look how that's just so easy to flatten right out. When we assemble our cabinet, this will be a nice flat board. These kerf cuts will be to the inside and no one will see them. Going back to our print now, our cabinet is 18 inches wide. Our dado was 7/16 of an inch deep, and so our shelves are going to be 17 3/16 side to side, fitting into the dado in order to make our cabinet 18 inch wide. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to cut some shelves 17 3/8 wide. For our next step in our cabinet, we're going to put the little scoop cut on the side to create the feet. And the front face frame piece also has a little scoop. Now, here I showed how big to make it, 5 inches high, 1 3/4 on the bottom, 3 1/4 inches wide. Our sides we already had cut. These are the same ones we dadoed right there. And I measured 2 1/2 inches on the back side. I'll turn it like this so you can see it better. 2 1/2 inches on the back side, 1 3/4 on the front side, also 5 inches high. And I created this curve by just tracing around a 1-gallon can. Very simple, and I just straightened it up. We're going to cut this with a jigsaw and sand, and then we're getting ready to sand the inside. We're going to give it a little finish on the inside before we assemble. Let's go to that point. Okay, we have our sides cut. These are our face pieces. We've done our dadoing on the back side, ready for our shelves. We've cut out for our little feet. We're going to do some routing now. We're going to route on the inside of the feet, the inside of our face frame, all the way around. And on the outside of our face frame, this goes together like this, creating the face corner of our cabinet. We're going to put an 1/8 inch round over on the back side of our face frame piece and on the edge of our end panel, so that when they go together, the 2 1/8 inch roundovers come together and form a little V groove. We're also going to do an 1/8 inch roundover on the inside of our face frame where it meets the door, and our door will have an 1/8 inch roundover. We also cut all of our shelves. These two pieces are the stretchers that are going to go up top. Here's all our shelves. We're going to do an 1/8 inch roundover on both sides of our shelf so that our shelf has a nice round also. And then we're going to sand everything. So let's go ahead and get our routing done first and then our sanding. We have completed the milling to the sides and shelves of our shaker cabinet. We have pounded in one of the shelves. I laid it on my bench and pounded it down, and you can see how the shelf fits into the dado. And our shelves are going to fit that all the way down. We're going to put the other side when we get there. But when we do that, the way we secure that is to take our 18 gauge brad nailer and lay it like this on the side with 1 1/4 nails. And we just give it 3 nails on each shelf underneath, and it doesn't come through the side. And we'll go ahead and complete our assembly based upon that assembly process. We now have the main portion of the cabinet put together. Now, in the spirit of full disclosure, I want to talk a little bit about what I had to do in order to get it to come together right. I ended up having to put a clamp across each shelf and pull it in before I put my nails in order to get the shelf to sink all the way to the bottom of the dado. Worked out fine. The cabinet has come out just like I had planned. It just didn't slide together quite as smoothly as I had hoped. So the clamps helped. You might have to do the same thing when you build it. Now comes the face frame part. These two strips basically are the face frame. We make them flush with the bottom and flush with the side are two little 1/8" roundovers that we put on the back side of this and on the front side of the back side of our face piece and on the front side of our panel piece. Create a little V-groove effect down the side of our face frame. So we'll go ahead and nail that on now. We're going to use 18 gauge 1.5" nails, and we're just going to face nail it because we're going to be filling and painting, so we don't need to worry about anything else. We'll just go down here and then we'll put a nail on each shelf to pull it all together. So we'll get started here. One. You know what, I'm going to have a little cheat stick. I'm going to show you this trick. We want this piece to be flush with this piece. And rather than try to line it up all by myself, I'm just going to put a stick here next to it and then pull this piece, my face piece, over tight against my stick that I have flush up against my panel. And that gives me the right angle that I'm looking for, the flush that I'm looking for. We'll just do that up here. Keep it coming. That works out really well. Start at the top and bring it in. And then we'll give a nail here to each one of the shelves. And that piece is on. We'll do the same to the other side. We now have our cabinet all put together like I showed you, and I went through and I filled all my nail holes ready to sand. Our next step in our construction is the door. Now the door is going to be a typical shaker flat panel door like we've done many times before. The only difference was this one is going to have a center style, so it's going to be a 2-panel door. Being as I've never showed you a 2-panel door before, I'm going to show you how I do it and one of the little tricks that I do that make it much easier to make sure your panel spacing is correct. But let's go ahead and set up and make a door raised panel style, table saw style. We have determined by measuring our cabinet that our door needs to be 11 3/8 wide by 44 inches high, a double panel. We've listed our sizes here. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and cut out our door, and I'll just have you watch me cut it out, go all the way through until assembly. You've seen me make doors before. This is just a very simple door, but then I'll point out the little trick I'm going to show you on the center. Okay, we've completed our stile and rail cuts with grooving and putting a tongue on the end of our rail pieces. I've just kind of put it together a real quick little dry fit so you can kind of get an idea of how the double panel would look. And here comes the trick that helps put a double panel door together. What I do is I turn it over, and my door is 44 inches long. My center panel is 3, so that leaves 41 inches. Divided by half would be 20.5 inches, and so I come in here and I make a mark 20.5 inches. I turn it around 20.5 inches to make sure that that's my 3-inch rail, and sure enough it is. And I turn the other piece over and mark it, and now I know where the center rail goes on my stiles. And what I do is I glue this piece in, and I clamp this and glue it and let it dry before I put any of my panels and the rest of it together. And then when I put my door together, I line up my marks on the other side of my rail, and I know my center rail is perfectly centered, and I glue the rest of the door. Now, we have done table saw shaker doors before, but we've always done single panels, and we're going to provide you a link with that video. I just wanted to show you this little trick to make sure that your center rail is always centered when you do a double panel door. Thanks. Let's get started on the rest of it. While our door is in clamps drying, the next part of our build is the top that we have to make. Now, we used 1x12 pine that we purchased for the sides, and so our cabinet is 11, and with a 3/4 face, 11 3/4. Our wood isn't that wide, so in order to make our top, we're going to take a piece of our 1x12 pine and add a couple of pieces to it, clamp it up, and then we're going to cut it to size afterwards. There's also an additional thing we have to do. Once we put the top on, there's going to be a 3/4 by 3/4 cove molding that will go around the top. And we're going to make our cove molding out of this piece of wood here and miter it to fit underneath our top when we put our top on. We'll go ahead and route that now. Our top that we glued up has come out of clamps now. We've determined that the size is 12 3/4 by 20, and we're going to cut that to size now. I already puttied the joints and a knot that we had in it so that we can go ahead and sand as soon as we've cut it to size. And we'll put a 1/4 inch round over edge on the top of it, and we'll attach it to our cabinet. Let's cut it to size. We have our top sanded. Our door also came out of clamps. We're going to sand that and get ready for routing that. And then, before we put the top on, we have to sand the cabinet. We'll get that up and sand it. So, right now, sanding. We've got our cabinet all sanded. We've sanded our door too, but we've sanded our top and we've put the 1/4 inch round over on the top of it. We need to attach our top here, and we need to run the cove mold that we made around underneath it. That's best done upside down. So we're going to turn our cabinet upside down on our countertop here and screw our cabinet to our top. We are now going to run the cove molding that we made around underneath our top. We have our cabinet upside down, and we're going to make our 45-degree cuts on the corner on our chop saw. Let's do that now. Okay,
ready.
We are done with the build portion of our shaker cabinet. We've got everything all sanded out, ready to go, including our door. This is the way the door looks when it's on, like that. It's going to be very cute, but we have one more step to do. We're going to give it a beautiful coat of paint. Then we'll be all done. Okay, we're getting ready to paint our shaker cabinet now. We put a back on it. We put some tape to cover off the ends of our shelves because we're going to leave our interior clean and clear lacquered. So we're going to have a pine interior, and then we're going to have a nice paint on the outside. Remember, we purchased our wood from Home Depot. We also bought our paint from Home Depot. We bought us a quart of Behr paint. We had it tinted to a dark gray that we liked. We purchased a good nylon brush. And when we get done brushing it, we just picked up this little soft little pad, and we're going to straighten out our paint lines with this soft pad after we paint it on with a brush. I'm just going to have you watch as I go through. We're going to just paint this one side, then turn it around, paint the other side, go after it. Let's do it. This is a good thick paint. I like this Behr paint. I've used it a couple of times on other things, and it's a good quality paint. And it's nice and easy to get because you can just go to Home Depot and get it. We're just going to go ahead, load up our brush, and go after it. I'll just have you kind of watch as I go through. I'm going to just be quiet and paint so that you can see how it goes on and just watch the process without a bunch of conversation from me. Not long ago on one of our videos, we had Jared, a professional painter, show us how to best paint a door with a paintbrush. I'm trying to follow his instructions and paint the way he showed us how in order to end up with the very best paint job with a brush on our little shaker door also. We'll see how good a student I am when we see how well I do on the finished product here. Jared was a very good teacher, and sometimes good teachers end up with poor students. I hope I'm not a poor student, so let's see if I can do a good job and follow his example and make a nice paint job on our door. One of the things he talked about was getting your paint on and then taking your final strokes to straighten out your brush marks. That's what I tried to do in the panels there, and I did pretty good, and I'm trying to do the same thing on the stiles and rails now. Oop. All right. Maybe I'd make him proud of me on my paint job. Who knows? All right, let's get this finished off. When it dries, we'll put this cabinet together, see how it looks. Well, here we are with our little shaker-inspired storage cabinet. We put on a beautiful coat paint, and I love the way that clear pine interior pops. It looks great. It's a wonderful little project. Why don't we do something else that's wonderful next time on Woodworking with Wes?